Hello, everyone. On this podcast episode, I'm going to continue about on the God series. I know, I said I'm going to stop it, but I guess I haven't said enough about it yet. Once I finish, saying all I can say, I just wanted to remind you that this podcast isn't really mainly about God, but since that's what's going on in my mind right now, I'll just talk about it. But the podcast, with the podcast is just about everything. So if you're a theist, a believer in God, stick around if you wish, but if you have questions to ask, you can leave it in the comment section of my blog page. I won't let you know the blog page, but if you ever find it, you know leave a comment section there. But on this episode, I'm actually going to talk about something that I mentioned before, about, why God, why would God hide himself. And the reason why God hides himself, like I said before, it's very simple. Because evil people will still be evil, whether God shows himself or not. You know that, right? People who do wicked things will still do wicked things, whether God, shows himself. So, remember, Lucifer. Lucifer knows that God exists, but and Lucifer still does evil things to this day. So obviously, him knowing that God exists doesn't really stop him from doing evil, right? Exactly. And if God shows himself, a lot of bad things. You think bad people are bad right now, but you don't know how they'll behave. When God becomes a factor. God hides himself that way. You yourself, like all the evil people, everyone in this world can behave the way they should. The way it gives you the freedom to behave in a world where you can never be too sure whether God exists. The information that I share in this video, no matter how accurate it is, in the end is not. There'll still be some level of doubt in it. Even if I prove with 100% with no doubt whatsoever, there'll still be people in this world who will just ignore everything I say, regardless of what. They'll ignore everything I say without the slightest care in the world. Why? Because as long as they don't see God physically, they don't care what I say. They don't care about the logic of my arguments. They don't care about my point of view. It doesn't matter to them. Not everyone in this world will listen to you. No matter how much you talk, that's what you need to learn in this world. No matter how truthful you are, no matter how logical you are, people will not, there are people in the world who give you the benefit of the doubt and listen to you. And there are people who will never listen to you no matter what you say. No matter what you say, there'll be people in this world who will never listen to you. So even if I have 100% proof, it means nothing in the eyes of some people. Proof means nothing in some people's eyes. So that's what you have to be careful of, And that's how this world was made, It was made in a way where even if God, even if the greatest theologists can prove God 100%, there will still be many scientists who will ignore everything he says. They will ignore it to the day they die. Why? It goes contrary to their opinions. Many people hate being told, being found out that they're wrong. If a lot of scientists, come out and say there's no proof that God exists, and then God shows himself, or a theologist comes out or a creationist comes out and proves that without reasonable doubt that God exists, do you know how bad it'll make them look? But I'll continue on to that, onto the reaction of creationists, probably at the end of this at the future section of this episode. But I'm just going to talk about if what will happen if God comes right now. In the future, I mean, touch up on it, or I may change it. It may be on a different episode if I wish. If I don't wish to continue it on this episode, I'll just touch up on it on a different episode. But right now, I'm going to talk about if God shows himself, right, the evil people in this world will still be evil. So what do you think will happen if God shows himself to the world? Let everybody know without a reasonable doubt that I'm here. He just shows up, in the sky to let everybody know and stays there for like a week or a month or for eternity. For the rest of our lives, just stays in the sky. Let everybody know, creates an image of himself in the sky. Let everybody know that he is God. He beams that understanding in our heads. It makes us all realize that the person up there is God without any reasonable doubt. Do you know what will happen? All the evil people that are still evil, the wicked people in this world, they're still wicked, right? They haven't the moral character haven't changed. The desires to do harm haven't changed. So what do you think they'll start doing? They'll start pretending to be nice people, right? Because out of fear of going to hell, they will start pretending to be nice people. Do you want to live in a world where everyone starts pretending to be nice? The fakest people, the people are evil and cruel, right? They've been doing evil things all their lives, but now that God appeared in the sky, now they start pretending to be the nicest person on earth. Do you want to live in a world where everyone's fake and pretentious? Is that the world you want to live in? Think about it. There's this guy, right? He's been killing people. Let's just say, he was born in a world where God has already showed himself like a few decades ago. So every time he looks up at the sky, he'll see God. And now, after he dies, right? He then, looks up at God and just starts telling him, he's pretending to be nice, his entire life, right? He's been pretending to be nice. He's been helping homeless, helping people. And then he comes up to God after he dies and says, God, please send me to heaven. And yet God keeps looking at him without saying anything. And then he continues, God, please send me to heaven. Yes, I've been thinking about killing people my entire life. Yes, God. Although I've been thinking about killing people my entire life, God, I've also helped the homeless. I've helped the needy. I give to charity all day long. I've been a nice person my entire life. Why aren't you sending me to heaven, God? Why can't you send me to heaven? I've been the nicest person my entire life. Everyone worships me for being so nice. Everyone likes me for being so nice. Why aren't you sending me to heaven, God? Do not send me to hell, God. Do not send me to hell. Although I've been thinking about killing innocent people my entire life, I've been thinking about butchering people every single day of my life. All I think about every single day of my life is killing people. But because of fear that you'll do something to me, because of fear of hell, I did not touch a single person once. God, why aren't you helping me? Send me to heaven where I belong. Although I've been thinking about killing people all day, all my life, I haven't touched a single person. I have not killed a single person my entire life. And I've been doing all these good deeds. Shouldn't I go to heaven when I've been doing all these good deeds? I've been helping people my entire life. Just because I've been thinking about killing people all day. Just because every single second of my life, I feel like killing a small innocent child. Just because of that does not mean I should go to hell, right? God, just because I think about killing innocent people all day long does not mean I should go to hell, right? I've been doing good deeds, right? I've been helping everybody that I've ever met. Yes, I feel like killing every single person I helped. But so what? I haven't killed a single person my entire life because you're here, because you're God. Because I haven't killed a single person my entire life. Doesn't that mean I belong in heaven? Doesn't it make logical sense to send me to heaven if I've never killed a single person my entire life? And I've been helping everybody all throughout my life. From the moment I knew you were, from the moment I looked at the sky and I saw your image and I knew that God existed in this world, I've been helping everybody my entire life. Doesn't that mean I should go to heaven? Think things through, God. Don't you think I should go to heaven when I've been helping people? I've been reading my Bible. I've been donating to churches. I've been helping churches. I've been doing all these good things. But yet, because I kill people, you don't want to send me to heaven? Doesn't make any logical sense. Just because I want to kill people All my life I've been thinking, dreaming about the day I can kill someone. Does that mean I shouldn't go to heaven? God, think this through. Don't you think I belong in heaven? That's where I belong, God. I've been helping people just like you wanted. I've been reading my Bible just like you wanted. I've been doing everything you want. I'm kind to others. I read my Bible every day. I pay my taxes. I do everything nice. I don't disobey the laws. The laws of the land. God, please send me to heaven where I belong. If you don't send me to heaven, if you ever send me to hell, I will start to kill people. So God, if you don't send me to heaven and you send me to hell instead, I will kill everybody I meet in hell. So please, God, send me to heaven where I belong. So guys, don't you think that's how evil people start behaving? If the moment they notice that God is real, the moment God shows up in front of them, in front of everyone's eyes, do you think evil people will continue behaving like evil people? Or do you think they'll hide those thoughts deep in their minds and then start pretending to be nice? Do you want to live in a world where all these evil people start pretending to be nice people? Or do you want to see them for who they truly are? Do you want to live in a world where you actually see what a real cruel person really is? How cruel some people can be? How evil this world can be? Don't you want to see that, before your very eyes? Don't you want to know how this world is? Do you want to live in a fake world where people keep pretending they're nice when they're not? Is that the world you want to live in? Obviously not. Because God doesn't want to live in that world. That's why he hid himself. To make sure you live in a world where you're not influenced by him. You're not influenced by him to do good or to do bad. It's your choice. You have full free will. God gave you that free will without his influence, without his presence manipulating you. You're either a good person or you're a bad person. And everyone around you can see exactly who you are. Most Christians, they pretend to be kind, and then after a while, because God is not there, right? Because they don't see God every single day. There's so many Christians out here that pretend to be nice. They pretend to be a Christian. And then after a while, they fall off. You know why they fall off? Because they've been pretending this whole time. They'll fall off and start doing some of the wickedest things in the world. And then they'll go back to it again, because they can't choose, should I pretend to be a Christian or should I not, And, that's what you need to be careful of. There's so many fake Christians out there. And you always have to monitor them. Because after a while, these fake Christians, they give up pretending to be fake, Sometimes it gets tiring, especially when you don't see God around you. There's no motivation to be fake after a while, So when a fake Christian goes to church on a Sunday, and after like 10 years of going to church, realizes I still don't see God anywhere. If I don't see God anywhere, I don't want to be Christian anymore. Or if I don't see God anywhere, time to start doing evil things behind the church back. Time to start doing evil things that still pretend to be a Christian in front of them. And that's the world we live in. If God comes, he'll influence our choices. His very existence will influence our choices. So in order to not influence our choices, he appears as if he's not there. You look around you and you don't see God anywhere. Why? To give you that freedom of choice. Let the whole world see who you truly are. That way on Judgment Day, you can't hide behind, I've been a good Christian my entire life. God, I've been helping everyone my entire life. Just because I think about killing people does not mean I've done it. I haven't killed a single person my entire life. So doesn't that mean I belong in heaven? The evil people of this world won't have that mindset. They'll never be able to have that mindset, because throughout their life, they didn't see God anywhere. So they didn't see God anywhere, time to behave whichever way they want. And that's the problem. And that's, they think they can manipulate God, but you just can't, You think you can manipulate God by pretending to be a Christian, in front of others, you pretend to be a Christian. When no one's around, you start behaving like the mad lunatic you are, There's so many, there was a story that I read, recently, where a pastor, was arrested. The pastor was arrested for murder. You know what he did? He killed someone, like a few years ago. He killed someone somewhere else a few years ago and then ran away to a different state and started pretending to be a pastor. This is the world we live in. In this world with God not around, evil people, evil people are very manipulative, very conceited, very cunning, you know, and very scheming. You will never be able to tell an evil person from a nice person. If they want to pretend to be nice, there's no way you can tell the difference between an evil person and a nice person. So if God shows himself, all these evil people start pretending to be nice. And there's no way that a normal human being will be able to figure out who's actually a nice person, who's actually an evil person. But when God's not, a part of the equation, guess what? There's no motivation for you to be, to be nice in this world. There's no motivation for you to be a kind person. Since there's no motivation, what's the point? The only time you can pretend to be a kind person is in front of the church congregation. And that's if you're a Christian, or that's if you're a religious person. If you're not a religious person, what's the point of being kind? You can do whatever you want. Kill someone, kill someone. Kill a child for no reason, kill a child for no reason. Who cares? The only person you have to be afraid of is the government, or the police. Is the police. As long as you can get away with the crime, who cares? No one knows. As long as no one knows the crime, it didn't happen. That's their mindset. As long as nobody knows that you committed a crime, it didn't happen. So if you think you manipulate God, into thinking you're a nice person by pretending to be nice, guess what? That's why God placed you here in a world where you can't even tell whether God is real or not. So how would you behave in a world, where no matter where you look, you can't see God anywhere? How would you behave? Would you still be a nice person? Would you still pretend to be a nice person? Think about it. In a world where you look around you, you don't see God anywhere. Would you still be a nice person? Or would you start, your true colors would start showing? People will start seeing you for who you truly are: a violent lunatic, a cruel villain, someone who loves killing people, someone who loves raping children, someone who loves harming everyone around them. Is that who you are? So this is something you have to think about. God is not is not an idiot. He knows exactly how you'll behave if he shows himself in front of you. If he shows himself to the world, he knows exactly how you behave. And obviously the fact that he doesn't show himself to the world shows that it won't be beneficial. It would not be beneficial for God to stand there, beam himself up in the sky and let everybody know he exists. Because evil people will still be evil. They will still be evil. Just like Satan. Satan knew that God existed, but he still rebelled. So that should tell you. Because God is there does not mean evil people will just, automatically not become kind folks. They'll automatically now, be the holiest beings alive. Kind and loving, they love their parents, they love everyone. Nope. A serial killer will still be a serial killer. Someone who loves killing children will still kill children. And there are people like that in this world. I've seen countless news articles of people there was an article that I read where, it was actually a video. The video was like a news video. It talked about someone, I think it was in Canada, right? The person, it may not be in Canada, but the video was, it was vague, but I believe it was in Canada. The person didn't mention where it was, but in the comment section, they said it was somewhere in Canada. So, they believed it was somewhere in Canada. But the video, right, talked about somebody who's been a serial killer for years. All that person did was abduct children and kill them. He buried those children in his backyard. All he did was go around when no one's around, walk around the streets and trick children into coming home with him. And then he'll rape and kill them. That's all he did for decades. And the guy only went to jail for something else. They had him arrested for something completely different. A serial killer that killed children and he almost got away with it. The only reason people found out that, he was a serial killer was that while he was in prison doing time for something else, right? He bragged to his own inmates. And the inmates ended up telling the cops. And, when inmates told the guards around him, the guards, obviously shocked by the inmates' words, They went to check his backyard, and they found hundreds of bones buried in his backyard of children. So the guy got arrested for something else. The serial killer got arrested for something else completely different. But because he bragged about it, that's when people found out that he'd been killing children for years, for decades, just taking them from the street and murdering them. So this is the world we live in. This world is very cruel. There are very cruel people in this world. So do not think this we're living in a happy, go lucky world where everyone is safe. So this brings me to the next, topic that I wanted to mention before. Is that this world is not, is not a world where, if you have information, everyone is ready for it. Some scientists hate people. Not all scientists, I'm not going to mention all scientists because, it's cruel to, demonize scientists as if they're all, evil villains. There are very kind scientists in this world. So I'm going to say that, there are a lot of kind scientists in this world. Not every scientist is evil because not every human being is evil. Being a scientist does not automatically mean you're an evil person. Being a scientist does not mean you're automatically a mad lunatic. Being a scientist does not mean anything except for the fact that you study science. Science, a scientist does not, automatically mean you're not a cruel villain who hates the world, who hates truth. There are a lot of smart people out there, and many of them are scientists. So I'm not going to, demonize scientists in front of you. They aren't all evil, So what I'm going to say is that this world is not a safe world. There are a lot of dangerous people out there. There's good in this world and there's bad in this world. There are kind people in this world and then there are evil people in this world. And that goes for the world of science as well. There are kind scientists and there are evil scientists. And all it takes, if there are 10 kind scientists and there's only one evil scientist, all it takes is that one evil scientist to kill you. No matter how many kind scientists they are, all it takes is one person to kill you. And remember, the cops only come during a crime. The cops are only called during a crime or after a crime has been committed. So if you take your safety, you have to take your safety into consideration. The cops will not be there when the crime is happening. The cops only show up after the crime has occurred. So if anything happens to you, you have to be careful. So what I'm going to tell you is that, as if you're a scientist or someone, or a creationist or a theologist, right? And you're studying something that goes against, popular science. There's scientists out there that have power, real power. Some of these scientists are related to drugs, drug kings, drug cartels, gangs, violent groups that have the power to come to your doorstep and kill you just for going against them. If the knowledge as a scientist or as a creationist or as a theologist, if any of these groups of people have knowledge that goes against, certain groups of science, certain groups of scientists, and these scientists are evil scientists, they will find a way to get rid of you. So you have to be careful when you spread knowledge in this world. Now, everybody cares about the truth. Some people will go out of their way to make sure the truth is buried. Do you know why? Because they've been saying words that they've been lying to people for years. When a scientist spends his entire life lying to people, right? A scientist with a PhD, in the eyes of others, he's got a PhD, he's a learned man, a man of honor, a man of integrity. That's in the eyes of others. This is him. A man of honor, a man of integrity, a man of, respect, a man of great esteem. Everyone, looks up to him. And he's been spending his entire life telling you X, right? He's been telling you this and telling you that. And then another scientist come, and then disproves everything he's been saying. Do you think that scientist, as another scientist comes, or a theologist comes, or a creationist comes, and disproves that esteemed PhD scientist, do you think that esteemed PhD scientist will like it? Do you think he'll be happy that his entire life's worth of, of knowledge, his entire life's worth of teaching, all the reputation he's built up over the years will come crashing down just based off your own research. Just based off the research of the other scientists or the theologist or the creationist. Do you think that PhD holding scientists will be happy? Do you think it'll make you feel good that, the moment your information comes out and leaks out to the public, people start mocking them? They'll call him a fool. They'll call him a stupid idiot. Do you think, a stupid idiot with a PhD, do you really think he'll be happy that everyone starts mocking him? Start thinking, his PhD was fake, that he's a stupid idiot with a PhD. He's an idiot with a PhD. He's a fool with a PhD. He doesn't belong in, the world of science. Nothing he's ever said made any logical sense. He's obviously a fool. No one should have ever believed in him. Do you really think someone can, someone whose entire life has been esteemed as a great man, do you really think he can handle being called a fool with a PhD, an idiot, someone who makes people with PhD look bad, someone who makes the whole science field look like retards? Do you really think do you really think he'll be happy that you or anyone that brings any information that's contrary to what he's been saying for decades? Do you really think that person will be happy? So you have to think things through. If that person is a violent person, or if that person is connected to anyone with power, that person will immediately try to bury your information in a heartbeat. They'll try to kill you. So there's so many scientists, there's so many rumors of scientists getting killed constantly all throughout history. You'll always be wondering why. It's because they keep bringing information that goes contrary to other scientists. Some scientists have a lot of power, and they've been spending decades, bringing out facts that aren't real facts. And when it comes, in the future, when it comes out, that all they've been saying for years are lies, how do you think they'll feel when the whole world turns against them? When the whole world stops mocking them for being liars? When the whole world starts mocking them for being fools? No one wants to be mocked by the entire world for being a fool. So naturally, they'll try to bury whatever information that goes contrary to their, to what they've been saying for years. So that's what you have to be careful of. If you bring information, no matter how truthful it is, no matter how logical it is, if you bring information to the world of popular science that goes contrary to what they believe, what some of these powerful scientists have been saying for years, guess what could happen to you? You can be falsely accused of crimes you never committed. That's one. You can be killed. That's two. Your information could be buried. That's three. They will delete your information. They'll try every way possible to make you look like a mad lunatic. So you have to be careful. This is the world you live in. People in position of power do not like to lose their position of power. So if you create something, if you have something that goes contrary to their opinion, and it'll make them look very bad in the eyes of their peers, it'll make them look bad in the eyes of the public, they will try, their best to bury that information. And if they can't bury that information, they'll try to bury you instead. So this is what you have to deal with in life. No, not everyone is kind in this world. There are very cruel scientists in this world. And some of them are connected to extremely powerful families. Some of them are connected to extremely powerful people. So that's what you have to worry about. There are scientists who will do anything to hide the truth, to hide their shame, to hide their lies. That way that, they don't get mocked and insulted in public. So if you take this information and you end up doing your own research on it and end up finding out more truths about the world, this is what you have to be careful of. If you open your mouth in front of the wrong person and contradict what they believe and make them look like fools in front of everyone around them, guess what will happen to you? That person may try to kill you. That person may try to assassinate you. So you have to be really careful in this world that you live in. Not everyone cares about the truth. Not every scientist cares about the truth. Not every government official cares about the truth. Some of the government officials they'll rather just believe the head scientists, the popular scientists, and forget about it, So these popular scientists, these great esteemed men, if you ever bring truth to the world of science that goes contrary to their opinion, they have the government at the beck and call. they can falsely accuse you of any crime and have their government, arrest and kill you. Some governments have, do not follow, basic law. Some of them do not even have, court, court trials. Some of these government, they can, the government can just order your death at any point in time. So if you live in in a country where the government has full right to kill you at any point in time, and you go contrary to the popular opinion of their in-house scientists that's been lying to them for decades, guess what will happen to you? That scientist will try to bury your information as soon as possible with all their might. And guess what will happen? If they can't bury it, if the information can be buried, they'll try to bury you instead. They'll try to kill you instead. So this is what you have to be careful of. You live in a world where information is best to be secretive than to be open. If you have information that's credible, you have to be careful who you tell that secret to. If you have research that's credible, you have to be careful who you give that information to. You may be giving the information to exactly who you don't want to give it to. People who will come to your doorstep to kill you and rip that information from your hands, and even pretend they're the ones who invented it. They're the ones who did the research on it. So this is also what you need to be careful of. There are a lot of greedy people out there. And they mean just because you create that information does not mean they don't want to they don't want to take credit for it. There are a lot of scientists who've never accomplished anything in their life, right? And you tell them about the information that you have, right? You spent your entire life working on something, and then you tell your friend, your colleague about it, right? You give them that research paper. You spent hours putting all your information, all the knowledge you have on one paper, right? On one research paper, about a 100-page document or 1,000-page document, and you give it to your friend to proofread it for you, and your friend reads it, your colleague reads it, and realize this makes too much sense, right? But I've never accomplished a single thing in my life, so why should you? You have all this information. That God is so unfair. It gave you the power to understand all these things that I'm incapable of understanding. And then your colleague kills you, right? He orders your assassination and then takes your research paper and tells everybody he created it. It was his research paper. He was the one who did all this. So this is what you have to be careful as well. There are people in this world who are, who will be greedy for what you have, the information that you have right now, the knowledge that you have right now. If you, as a scientist, as a creationist, or as, or a theologist, there are people in this world, or theologian, whichever one you want to call it. There are people in this world who will be greedy for the information that you have, and there are people in this world who will try to bury it. And if they can't bury it, they'll bury you. And if they can't steal your information, they'll try to kill you as well. So this is what you have to deal with in life. So be careful when it comes to information. Be careful when it comes to research, because your life, is hanging by a thread. Could be hanging by a thread as well. So that's it for this podcast episode. I'll talk to you guys later.